punt on a topic that people have strong opinions about, but I don't ever find myself thinking there's anything unjust about it. You play a whole year, you win the division. I don't really care what your record is. 4 teams duked it out. I'm fine if you're 8-9 and you're playing at home. Like that's there should be all reward, I still think, for winning the division, even if you have a lousy record. Go ahead.
Can I stop you there? That is the number one thing that people have said to me. There should be an reward. There is. You're in the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, you get the playoff spot. You automatically get it no matter what. That's the reward.
I don't need to beg off
more of a reward than
the topic, but I like it the way it is. I would rather see teams get to pick their opponents, and that would, I think, logically leave if it's the Steelers as the 4, if you go 2-3-4, the last choice. So it wouldn't even really be a choice. Like there could be a 6 you'd rather play than a 7 or whatever. So I'd rather it go like that, but I don't need to change. It's how I felt about overtime. Overtime might be one where there was more, quote, unfairness to it. Mm-hmm. One team gets the ball, scores, wins, like that. But I don't know. I never needed that change. You had 60 minutes. I never need that changed either.
I wonder if this comes back up this year. I wonder if the Bills are a team that brings it up this year,
maybe,
considering everything. I will say, though, someone brought up a good point when they tweeted back at me. It could actually benefit the Bills this year, because if you did that and you seeded them just by record, they could wind up playing Houston at home, for example, as opposed to maybe going to Pittsburgh. And even though you'd say, well, you'd love to be at home, I think most fans would go, yeah, I still like that outcome a little better.
Well, that's what we were talking about for a minute earlier, is like, what is the best or the preferred path for them with 3 weeks to go? If you eliminate the possibility of the 1 or even the 2, if you say they're going to be a wild card, how would you want it to stack up? Would you want the AFC North the first game? And I laid out earlier, Sal, you'll feel this. Buffalo, Baltimore, if that were to be a first-round game, that could look nice on the Sunday night. I mean, they've done that before. Yeah. And then you could have, I don't know, however you want to slice it. The Chargers go to Jacksonville Saturday at 4:30 and win. The Texans go to Foxborough Sunday at 1 o'clock and win. That's a 1 o'clock special if I've ever seen one. And then the Bills and the Ravens play for a home game in round 2.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I got to that last week, and I like that a lot. I'm even at a point now where I would say I don't care if it's Baltimore or Pittsburgh, recognizing that Baltimore should be more dangerous than Pittsburgh. I think because of the likelihood, it's more likely this year because of the way the top is that what Mike just laid out happens. You know, it's not nuts to think that those upsets could happen. The spreads probably won't be huge in those games. You might even have a road team or 2 favored. Who knows? So it's not nutty to me. So now I pretty much have settled on get me to the 5. And if I got to deal with Baltimore, then I got to live with that. But I think the potential reward is pretty realistic that you could end up playing 2 games at home after that.
I agree with you. I think that's right. I just would need to know to really hammer that in if it's Pittsburgh or Baltimore. I think it matters to me.
It does.
But I agree with you. It's because if you are the 5, there's 2 chances for teams to have upsets that give you a home game. If you're the 6, you only have 1 chance for that. Right? You know, and I think that's the preferred path because you want to play at home. But, man, if you had to stack them, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Baltimore, I'm taking them in that order. So that means if Baltimore wins the North and gets the 4, I kind of really don't want the 5, but I totally understand where you're coming from for round 2.
Yeah,
there probably is a scenario where the Ravens could win that division without beating the Steelers. I guess they'd have to go 3-0 versus 0-3. They'd have to beat them outright. No, what am I saying? Is there a scenario where the Ravens could lose the Week 18 game to Pittsburgh? No, right? They'd be 2 back, and there's 2 other games they would have been swept. So they have to win that game. I think I'm not at a point as pro-Ravens as I almost always am, where I'm sort of thinking fearfully about Baltimore. If they get there, they'll at least have won in Pittsburgh the week before, and maybe also won at Lambeau the week before that. Or the Patriot game. Like, they have only tough teams left.
Right.
So that, if you include the Steelers, which that's a rivalry where all those games are super tight. So I think I might expect to feel a little bit more nervous, if you will, about the Ravens if they were the team because of what it would have to have taken for them between now and then to get there. But
yeah, and I think what it takes out of you maybe playing them too, because they're gonna bring a physical run game, and you're gonna have to you go in the next week, you have to go on the road again. Most likely if you win, it doesn't have to be, but that's true. It looks like Lamar in some capacity is starting to run a little bit more. Is he getting healthier? Right. I think there's a lot of things in there. The Bills, by the way, can clinch a playoff spot this weekend if they win and Nittany loses or ties, or they win and Houston loses or ties. The Bills are in. The Bills could also tie and have some things happen. But if the Bills win and one of those teams, Indy or Houston, loses or ties, the Bills are in.
Fair chance of that. Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. What's today's news? So a couple of walkthrough injuries or whatever you want to call this, names that maybe we weren't expecting to see.
Before practice, Sean McDermott gave us an injury update. He said the only two players not practicing will be Matt Prater and Jordan Phillips. We all know that those guys are already declared out for Sunday's game. He basically said everybody else will be out there. That included Christian Benford, obviously really good news. After practice, we get the injury report. Deion Dawkins did not practice due to an illness, and Dalton Kincaid was listed as a did not practice due to the knee. And once again, I'll remind everybody every Wednesday, this doesn't mean something happened at a walkthrough or before that. This is a estimation of what the practice would be had it been a full practice. I did see Dalton in the locker room after. Didn't chat with him, but he was walking, to an area where players go. So this could be nothing. It could be something. It's something they've been dealing with him with the knee. He's been on the injury report. It could be literally, and I've explained this many times to people, like sometimes Sean has the information and then it changes before he gets out to practice because a trainer may say, hey, you know what? We're going to lay off this guy a little bit today.
A little tight.
Or the opposite.
Whatever.
Hey, you know what? This guy is a little bit more ready to go than we thought today. And that can happen. So we'll wait till tomorrow to see.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Dawkins is just sick, so that I wouldn't feel really alarmed about that, although, whatever. The illness can be severe enough to last a few days, but hopefully that all turns out fine. What do you make of their receiver room right now with the way Sunday went? Do you think, what did you make? I don't think we ever talked about this, of Davis being scratched. And that caught myself by surprise, maybe quite a few fans, because it felt like he was maybe ahead of Keon Coleman in the pecking order after the benching. What do you know, if anything, about what happened with Davis? Was he just entirely healthy and they just made a different choice?
Yeah, it wasn't on the injury report, so they didn't want to go with 6 wide receivers. They have more numbers than they want to dress every week, basically. So this was a game where I think they wanted to, go a little bit more heavy with the tight ends. They used their 3 tight ends a lot. Going back to Kincaid, he only played 25 snaps last game. They really used Knox and Hawes more than him, and that's an indication. Again, I think they're kind of just managing him right now, so we'll see what that means. But yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with Gabe. My thought was I was surprised, and I think, and I've said for a couple of weeks now, I think Gabe Davis is a better option than Keon Coleman. I think he's available for Josh in the scramble drill. He's made some nice catches in big situations. We haven't seen that from Keon. Now, that said, I totally understand they did not draft Keon Coleman with the first pick of the second round or to have him block. I mean, right? Like to be a blocker, to catch the ball. But I will say, I thought he did good things away from the football. Like that's something he needs to show, that he's still engaged and he's still doing all those things if he wants to continue to be somebody they can trust to put on the field. But going forward, I mean, he only had 1 target and it actually wasn't even an official target because it was a pass interference call. Right. So they didn't throw him the ball. I think Gabe Davis is a better option. But it's probably a tough call right now. You have this guy, he's a young player. You have Gabe, who did have the injuries, coming off it. Maybe another week that gets him, hey, okay, we're trying to play the long game with Gabe. You can understand that. And they just didn't want to dress 6 wide receivers. Now, that said, interestingly enough, 2 things. Josh Palmer, not even listed on the injury report today, which is great news, right? He had been on there quite a bit. So I think that's really good news. But they also opened up Mecole Hardman's 21-day window today. Now, granted, he would be a return man. I totally get it. But they'll have 7 receivers on the active roster, essentially, when he gets activated.
Right.
New kicker.
Yep.
Michael Badgley. We talked about this on Monday for a minute. He's been around. This is just what you do, right? You go back into the pool when your guy goes down.
Yeah, I think late in the year, games that matter, you can't really take anything to chance by a young guy. You bring in a young guy and you want to. I think you're much more comfortable with a guy who's been around, a guy who's done it and kind of seen everything. He's been in multiple organizations, so it's not like he doesn't understand how to kind of fit in right away. It's the same thing I tell people when fans get upset that the Bills sign a guy that they've known. It's midway through the year. They get some guy that had been with the organization. It's like, look, you're not teaching the system anymore. That's all done. You did that back in training camp and through the season. Now you need players to come in and play right away. So not that there's a system necessarily when it comes to being the kicker. Yeah, there's some things. But here's a guy that's been on 5 different teams. I mean, he's used to having new situations. That said, I was looking at the numbers today, guys. For the season, he only played with Indy this year. He is 10 of 11 on field goals. And Matt Prater is actually 18 of 20. They both have a 90% field goal rate. So it's kind of interesting. They have the exact same numbers. Matt Prater and Michael Badgley have both missed 3 extra points. The difference is that Prater's kicked double the amount. But they have the same field goal percentage this year.
What do you think about him wearing 32? Anything? Does it mean anything for you?
No, I think we're past
Days
that.
are over.
Once Sonoris Perry wore it a few years ago, and it's like there was a big thing about it, right? People talked about it, and the general consensus was, I think, from everybody involved, whether the team didn't say this directly, but that, 32 wasn't retired. So if you're not giving it to somebody, what are you doing? Like, why wouldn't you? And then you have to recognize things you don't want to recognize, maybe, or talk about it, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
That's why.
Pro Football Reference, by the way, says the pronunciation of this new kicker's last name is Badgley.
I'm going to go ahead and not do that.
Mariota.
I'm not.
Badgley.
I'm just not going to do that.
That's right.
So how about linebacker? We talked a lot about Shaq Thompson and his impact last week leading up to the New England game, and that was a tough. He looked. I watched some of the cut-ups of it, Joe Marino's breakdown, and just not a great outing. Is it a tougher, like you and I think we're pretty much in agreement that he shouldn't come off the field going into the New England game, regardless of what is going on with Terrell Bernard. At worst, maybe a timeshare rundown versus pass down or something like that. Now you've got Milano having this big splashy game, Bernard getting healthier, and Thompson, maybe it's just a bad week, right? I don't want to punish him off one game. Did you think he was less than what he had been most of the year on Sunday, and what do you think it'll mean?
I did think he was less than what he had been, but I don't think it has to mean a big deal at this point. If there's a couple of games like that, then I think you start to get a little concerned. This is a Cleveland team that doesn't run the ball very well, but they have a good young running back in Quinshon Judkins. I find it fascinating what they might do eventually, what happens when Terrell Bernard comes back. And by the way, he was limited again today with the elbow. Remember, he was limited all last week. He didn't play. I mean, they could literally just keep Terrell Bernard on the shelf until the playoffs and say, get as healthy as freaking possible, and then we'll make decisions when we get there. And then it's just, you go with what you need to go with to win football games. I didn't think he had a very good game. He did miss some tackles, but I've seen enough from him this year that I'm not going to paint a broad picture about that.
Off one game.
I'm still going to believe that he fits this defense right now against the teams they're playing, and they want to play and the way they want to play the Buffalo Bills better than Terrell Bernard has.
I don't really know. We've talked about this in the last couple of weeks from time to time, what you manifestly do about this. But when you say that about Bernard, like the Bills are in a race like they were last year, but they're also not really. I mean, last year they were trying to chase down the 1 seed week after week. They were so close, couldn't do it, and they had it a little bit easy in Week 18. We might have a season here that'll play out somewhat the same, and how even though it won't be for a division title, like we talked about at the beginning, 5, 6, 7 seeds, how much does it really matter? So sure, you're trying to win Sunday and get to first place, and whatever else comes with it if you keep winning. But this might be another one, Sal. It'll be interesting in Week 18 if we're kind of in that block where you could move a seed or two, like has happened before with the 2 and the 3 with teams, where there is that incentive, but how important is it versus resting, players who are not 100%?
I think there's a decision
100%.
maybe. Yeah. I think next week could be one of these weeks, Week 17. But basically, Week 17 kind of doesn't matter to the division race. Even if you lose, you still have to have New England. New England has to lose another game, and you got to win the other 2 games. They have to lose the the division game, right? So yeah, I think my math is right on that.
Yeah.
You could be faced with a decision week 17, and there could be 2 weeks in a row of that. And then you're starting to look at the standings and do the Bills actually play the game of, do we kind of want to do what you said, Mike, pick our opponent, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. Which you can't really do necessarily, because what if Baltimore and Pittsburgh are the Sunday night game? And it comes down to who wins it. And you wind up the 5, and you got to wait on that night to find out who you're playing.
And would it matter manifestly, again, to this whole point, who the winner of that game is? Like
That's right. It might or might not. If it didn't matter, they won't put it on Sunday night, I don't think.
If you know it's Pittsburgh, you might treat it differently than if you think it might be Baltimore. Like in some way.
I don't want to muddy the waters on the math, but I think, Sal, if New England beats Baltimore this week, assuming a Bills win in Cleveland, then
Bills have to win.
Yeah, I think. But if they drop that game, then I think you've got that wiggle room there, because assuming you have them on a tie, if they lose one of those division games, so you need them to drop a game before you could take next week off. But it's conceivable they could lose to Baltimore.
Which brings into the question, who should Bills fans root for in that game this weekend?
Right.
I can't get it to mean anything. Patriots-Ravens.
Well, here's something. Maybe.
I think it means something for standings for sure. I mean, it might not mean anything for the division in the end. I agree, Mike, but I think it means a lot for who's in the playoff field.
To Baltimore. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Sure, I get that from that side of it. I get that.
So if you want Baltimore out, then root for New England, but then you're also giving yourself that much. Really, it's just the benefit of being able to maybe go easy week 17, like Sal suggested.
Pittsburgh at Detroit Sunday, by the way.
I'll tell you this, by the way, too. Doesn't matter what they choose as far as resting players or not. I can guarantee you Josh Allen's starting each game.
Right,
oh, yeah.
Of course. Right.
What do you think of the Miami move today?
I think they are most likely moving off Tua, and they're going to take that dead cap hit. But I think this is a trial run to see what they have behind him, to figure out what they need to do in the offseason now that they've made that decision. Do they have somebody in Quinn Ewers? Do they have something in Zach Wilson? Can Mike McDaniel coach these guys without Tua? Because in the past, without Tua, they've been pretty bad when they've had to go away from him. Could be a referendum on him. I wonder if he made the decision or if Stephen Ross made the decision. But I don't know how you go back to Tua. You can't. Could you keep him on the bench? Sure. That's a weird look. I just think at this point, after doing this, it's all but certain that they have to take that dead cap hit and move on next year. That's the way I look at it now.
All right, Sal. Nice to talk to you. We'll do it again tomorrow.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
It's our dude Sal Capaccio on the Wester Hotline.